All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. I know it's been a little while since we last had a live stream. A little too long, actually. It's been a couple of weeks, and for a while there, we were very consistent. But as you all know, and we're going to wait for a couple more people to get in the chat here in a little bit, but as you all know, we just kicked off prediction season about a week and a half ago. So it's been a little while. Brandon Franklin, it's good to have you, man. Glad that you were able to join us, man. I'm doing good. Better than ever, to be honest with you, man. I'm excited to be back in prediction season. I hope you're doing well. But I'm glad you're able to join us today. And I'm hoping my man Freeman's able to join the line with us. Freeman Allen, he commented and wanted to join the chat because he's going to be in the United States till the month of July for the entire month. So I'm hoping he'll be able to join with us here in a little bit. Uncle Luke, good to have you, man. You've been a very frequent commenter on a lot of our videos. I can see you're a UNC fan, so glad to have you, man, as always. Mike Myrick, glad to have you too. One of my favorite guys to join the chat and one of my favorite viewers that we've got. I'm doing good, man. Go Noles as always. As always. I hope you like that Florida State prediction. I know that wasn't great, 8-4, which isn't horrible considering what happened last year, 5-7. But hope you enjoyed that a little bit. And Ethan, South Carolina's prediction, we've got a whole schedule laid out for when we're going to be posting each individual video. And I can tell you that the SEC will start somewhere around July 24th or 25th, somewhere around there. So it's going to be a couple weeks till the SEC begins. But, of course, when that happens, South Carolina will be in there. And they, of course, I know everybody's interested to see that prediction because, South Carolina has one of the toughest schedules in the entire nation. So people have them anywhere from 5-7 to 8-4, but we will have our official prediction for the Gamecocks coming out in just a few weeks. Christopher Smith, what's going on, man? Glad to have you. Glad you were able to join us today. And Brandon, I saw your comment. Absolutely, I'm pumped as anybody for the season. I think we're less than 50 days away. I think this past Saturday marked 7 weeks until week 0 began. So August 24th. Florida, Miami, and then the late night game that no one's talking about because of the Florida-Miami game, but Arizona and Hawaii, which could be a pretty sneaky good game in week 0. You got Cole McDonald and the Rainbow Warriors, one of the best quarterbacks in the group of 5, and they have a very experienced team coming back. And then Arizona with year 2 under Kevin Sumlin and Khalil Tate, J.J. Taylor, and a defense that returns 8 starters and isn't getting a lot of attention. Even though they were pretty bad in 2018, they're going to make some major strides forward in 2019. So that Hawaii-Arizona game going to be sneaky good right after that Florida-Miami game. So less than 7 weeks out. If you're going to be right on target, it's going to be 47 days, I think. So I'm as ready as anybody for sure. See, Nona, good to have you. Glad you were able to join us today. And once again, before I dive into the rest of the questions and everything, and feel free to blow this chat up, guys. This is the whole reason we do live streams, is to discuss with you guys, to discuss some college football. But usually we are doing primetime live streams. Usually we're doing 6, 7, 8. I think one point we even did one at 9 o'clock at night. Weren't able to make that happen today. As you can see, predictions, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what kind of guy you are, take priority over live streams during prediction season. So we're cranking those out, trying to work ahead as much as possible. But today I really wanted to get on and do a stream with you guys just because it had been so long. But because I know for the next couple of weeks it's going to be nonstop predictions, including one that comes out tonight. You're not going to want to miss it. We have Oregon coming out tonight. We're kicking off the Pac-12 predictions tonight, kicking things off with Oregon, who is by far the heavy favorite in the North Division and probably the heavy favorite to win the entire Pac-12. So you're not going to want to miss that. Coming out around 6 or 7 o'clock tonight, so make sure you don't miss out on that. But Nona, yes, Florida-Miami a day game. No, they're going to be kicking off at 6:30 on August 24th, 6:30 for the Gators and the Hurricanes. A really fun in-state game. I'm really looking forward to. Clayton Holderfield, man, good to have you, man. Glad to hear from you. Digging the beard, hey, man. I know you've got a pretty solid one yourself, so I'm just trying to imitate, Just trying to do exactly how you are. But no, we're working on it. We're going to see how long it lasts. But I appreciate it, man. Glad to have you. And look forward to getting with you here in a few days. And Will Burrow, you need to do Texas predictions. Well, Will, I can tell you what, man. I know you are anxious for these Texas predictions. I know I've talked to you. You're pumped for it. I'm pumped for it because I'm ready to release those. But the way the schedule works out, we're not going to be able to release those Texas predictions until later on. We've got little ways to go before we even get to the Big 12 because, normally I wouldn't care about the way the schedule works. But this year, we have got plenty, and I mean plenty, not just 2 or 3, like 6 or 7 on-site predictions coming your way in the following weeks. Today is Monday. On-site predictions will start next week. We're going to be hitting the road, hitting some campuses, hitting some universities, getting some all-access tours, and diving into that. So, Will, I know you were a little bummed about that, but you got to understand that there may or may not be some Big 12 teams in our on-site predictions. I can't tell you where we're going. That ruins the fun, ruins the surprise. But the way the schedule worked out, Big 12 won't be for a little while. But y'all aren't going to want to miss these on-site predictions. They're going to be better than our on-site predictions last year. Hit BYU, Utah. We went to New Mexico, didn't do a prediction for them, but visited the New Mexico campus and went on their field, hung out there for a little bit. Went to Oklahoma State, went to Oklahoma. That was probably my personal favorite, Texas Tech. So that was all last year. This year going to even be better. Couple Big 12 teams in there, but that's not going to be the majority of it. The majority of it, I don't want to tell you. I really don't want to tell you, but you all are going to love it. I promise you. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's not just going to be a film outside the stadium. It's going to be legit. Mark Mello, good to have you, man. And thank you for joining us, man. I see you just got on the channel this week. So, hey, better late than never, man. I'm glad you found us and glad you're able to join us. And I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. That means the world to us. But we want to make you guys engaged and make sure you guys are enjoying the channel. If you aren't enjoying it, we're doing something wrong. So we're glad to have you. What do I think about the fallout of UConn leaving the American Athletic Conference? Well, I can say this. It's a very interesting scenario going on with the Huskies because in every other sport, they're leaving to join the Big East. Makes sense. Basketball, baseball, whatever it is, track and field, everything else but football, they're leaving to the Big East because, of course, football, there is no Big East. It's unfortunate for the Huskies to be having to leave the American Athletic, even though they haven't been competitive in that conference since really they joined. They've been, it's hard to believe that it's been almost 10 years since UConn actually made an appearance in the Fiesta Bowl. They fell to Oklahoma in that game, but they were there. They were in a BCS caliber bowl game, but of course kind of just fell off. But I think, UConn more than likely, no other conference seems to be interested in taking the Huskies, which is really, really bad. When a conference like the Conference USA or the MAC or someone like that doesn't want you, it's bad. So I have a feeling that UConn is probably going to go independent, join the likes of Notre Dame, Army, BYU, New Mexico State, Liberty, and that would be a fine spot for them because there are plenty of, schools. I mean, when you try to join a conference, you have to look at the geography. You have to think of where the school is located geographically. You're not going to put a team on the West Coast in the SEC or the West Coast in the American Athletic. It doesn't make any sense. So you've got to look at the geography. So independent would probably work fine for UConn, and then they could schedule teams out of the MAC. I think if they went to the independent, they would get to more bowl games than they had in the American Athletic. They can schedule who they want, and they're not going to schedule these big dogs. Might schedule a few, but they're going to schedule some lower level, Conference USA, maybe Sun Belt, MAC, guys like that, giving them an opportunity to win. Instead of facing off against the likes of Temple, UCF, Houston, guys like that in the American Athletic every year, they just don't stand a chance. But I think it's a very odd scenario. It's not very often you see that. Especially with every single athletic program. Sometimes they just move a basketball program. Sometimes they just move a football program. But it's everything. And UConn is definitely in a bit of in a tough spot. So I'm curious to see what happens to them, where they decide to fall. But right now, I think more than likely they're going independent. And I think if I'm a Husky fan, I'd rather have that than joining another conference. The independents get a lot of hate. Notre Dame more than anybody because Notre Dame's the only independent that consistently competes on the national level, like in terms of trying to get to the college football playoff. So everybody hates on Notre Dame because they're like, you don't play in a conference, so of course you're going to make the playoff. You can schedule whoever you want, go undefeated. Thing is, they don't always go undefeated. And they don't schedule crap teams. They schedule some, but they do schedule guys. Like this year, they had to play at Georgia, at Michigan, and at Stanford. That's 3 legit games for the Fighting Irish. So they're not just scheduling some poor opponents there. So that's something to keep in mind. But UConn will definitely benefit more if they go independent. But Mark, I'm glad to have you, man. Great question, and I'm glad that you're able to join us, man. I hope you stick around and keep enjoying the content. Alan Wang, Florida is going to have a good year. Just wait. Hey, I never said they weren't. Never said they weren't. If you watched my Miami prediction, excuse me, good lord, my Miami prediction, you saw where I have Florida beating Miami, and you were happy about that. I saw that. I think that was you. You commented on that video. So at least they're going to start off 1-0. But I have a lot of faith in Dan Mullen and the Gators. A lot of people don't think they might fall off because people are saying they've had off-field issues and they're losing people. And yes, they are. They are. But they're still going to be fine. I have no doubt. This happens to the majority of the big name schools. They lose a bunch of people to the NFL draft. They lose a bunch of people due to transfers. They lose people to injuries. They get off-field issues. I mean, Georgia's having plenty of off-field issues right now, and they're going to be just fine. So I'm not too worried about that. And Nona, another good point. They did lose another player today and enter the transfer portal, but it's not a big deal. It happens all the time. So I do believe that Florida will be just fine, Alan. Absolutely. Uncle Luke, I'm excited to see what happens in the next couple of seasons with Mac Brown back. Well, absolutely. I know you probably weren't thrilled with my first prediction of UNC. We did, as you all know, we have 14 people on the line right now. We have finished the ACC, so all of our ACC predictions are out there, game-by-game predictions, including our conference recap, which gives you our projected standings and who we have winning the conference, which, of course, shouldn't be a big surprise. It is Clemson. That's who we are picking, at least. But we have UNC, North Carolina, going 2-10 in year one under Mac Brown. And a lot of people expect UNC to win 4 or 5, maybe compete for a bowl game. And I just don't think that's the case. But Uncle Luke, your point is that you're excited to see where it goes. I said that. I think that he is the right man for the job. I truly believe that. And a lot of the people on this chat are probably too young to remember, including myself. But Mac Brown used to coach at North Carolina back in like 1988, 1989, I think all the way to 1997 before he left to take the Texas job. And his first 2 years with the Tar Heels were horrible. Won just one game each of those first 2 seasons. But they kept him, and he ended up winning 11 games down the road, making them a national contender. So he is the right man for the job. It's just not going to happen in 2019. I would be shocked if UNC wins more than 4 games. I really would. I think 4 is the ceiling for them. I don't see it being any better than that. But Mac Brown, coming out of retirement, he is a good coach. We saw what he did at UNC. We saw what he did at Texas. He can do the same thing again late in his career. It's just not going to happen in year one. Trey Drew, good to see you, man. I've been doing pretty good. I know you just joined the chat, so I was just telling everybody earlier that predictions, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what kind of fan you are, will take priority over live streams. But I'm glad to be back. We are happy to be back on the live stream with you guys, talking some college football. That is one of our favorite things to do. And once predictions end and once the season gets started, you can bet your money that we're going to have plenty of live streams to discuss with you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I know today we're doing it at 2 o'clock Central Time. Usually we do it later at night so more people can join. But right now we got 18 people, and that's pretty good to me. So we're definitely glad to have all of you guys on with us. And make sure you stay tuned. We're going to have this live stream. Probably going to take a break from live streams for a little while after this. And then we're going to keep going through predictions. And then we'll probably have another one late July, mid-August for another live stream. But y'all are keeping up engaged. I will respond to all of your comments on the predictions so we can still keep some conversations going. Lane White, good to see you, man. Go Jackets. Absolutely. He was a big-time contributor. Lane was to our Georgia Tech prediction, giving me a lot of insight. So always good to have you on the chat, man. Absolutely. Oh, I like this question. I like this question from Brandon Franklin a lot, actually. I'm going to get everybody else's questions, I promise. But what football program is next in line to be the next Clemson, Alabama? And DM, I see you coming in right now. Good to see you, man. Always happy to have you. One of my favorite subscribers right there. And Cyclone Mitch, I saw you come in a second ago, too. So always good to have you, too, man. Absolutely. Pumped you're able to be here. But this question by Brandon. What program is next in line to be the next Clemson/Alabama? So you look across it. I mean, Clemson and Alabama have dominated college football for the past, what's it been, 4 years now? 4 consecutive trips to the college football playoff for each of them and 4 consecutive meetings between them. Right now, Clemson's not slowing down anytime soon, and I don't think Alabama will slow down until Nick Saban retires. Man, depending on who his successor is, they might not even miss a beat. But Eli, you stole the words right out of my mouth. Georgia looks primed to be the next Clemson, Alabama, in my opinion. One of many. There are a couple schools up there that I think could continuously kind of get to that point. But Georgia is I wouldn't say come out of nowhere, but Kirby Smart comes in year one and gets them to a Liberty Bowl. The second year, Georgia wins or goes to the national championship, gets to the college football playoff, beats Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl, and nearly beats Alabama in the national championship game. And then the year after that, they nearly beat Alabama in the SEC title, fall just short, and go to the Sugar Bowl. Kirby Smart has built something in Athens. He is building something in Athens, and I truly believe that he is Georgia is the next Clemson / Alabama. And eventually they will beat Alabama. Alabama's got their number. And man, it's just the way it's been. They beat them in the national title. They beat them in the SEC title. Georgia's going to break through eventually. So right now, I would say they are the next Clemson / Alabama type team. I saw Will Burrow down there. He mentioned Texas. I don't know if I'd go that far yet. I want to see what Texas does in 2019. Can they beat LSU in week 2? If they beat LSU in Austin, luckily they will get to host the Longhorns. If they beat them, they are absolutely the real deal this season. Because I'm looking at it, yes, Texas did beat Georgia. They did. And I don't want to hear excuses that Georgia wasn't motivated or whatever, because Texas didn't just win by a touchdown. They annihilated that game. They won 28-21. That's what the final score was. But it was a lot bigger of a margin than that. Georgia may not have been motivated. That's fine. But Texas was, and they showed it. So I truly believe that Texas could be the real deal if they beat LSU in week 2. That's going to be the true test. And I'm sure a lot of you guys saw the comments out there from Terry Bradshaw, Louisiana Tech guy, saying that he would rather have any guy at Louisiana Tech than the guy they have over at Texas, and Sam Ehlinger saying he ain't that good. I do think he's good. I don't believe Terry Bradshaw in the slightest there. I think that's a pretty bad comment, and just adds a little fuel to the fire in what should be a blowout win for Texas over Louisiana Tech. But I think Sam Ehlinger is a real deal. So maybe Texas. Let's see how they do in 2019. But right now, my definite answer is Georgia. Absolutely. What else we got here? Eli, you're a big NFL guy. I can see all these comments here. So I should have a show focused on the NFL. Who's my favorite NFL team? Eli, I do NFL predictions, but only usually when the playoffs roll around. When the playoffs roll around, I usually break down the brackets, the AFC side and the NFC side, and I discuss that. When we do live streams in the middle of the season, I can certainly turn a little bit over to the NFL. We can talk a little bit about that because I love that too. And the Gridiron Expert, our focus here is college football, but Gridiron is the entire Gridiron. So that, of course, includes the pro football. That includes NFL. And I do watch that all the time. I mean, that's my weekends are taken up by just pure football. So I don't have a show dedicated to it. We don't really focus on it here, but we will definitely talk about it some. And predictions always come out for that when the playoffs roll around. NFL, it's a longer season. You got 16 games for every team, and then playoffs. And so we're not going to do game-by-game predictions for each NFL team. And in my opinion, the NFL, it's much tougher to predict game-by-game regular season than it is for the college football. I truly believe that. See what else we got here. Hunter5657. Hey, good to see you, man. Glad you're able to join the chat. And Preston Love 26. I saw you there too. Come in just a few minutes ago. So glad to have you. Glad you're able to join us. Alan Wang, the next conference we will cover. So we got 23 now people watching the stream, and we are glad to have every single one of you. But Alan, good question. Tonight, around 6 o'clock or so, we will be releasing our Pac-12 predictions. We will begin our Pac-12 predictions starting with Oregon. The Oregon Ducks coming out tonight around 6 or 7 o'clock. I know everybody's anxious for those SEC predictions. Obviously, we have a lot of SEC fans that watch us here, but as I mentioned earlier, the way our schedule is arranged, especially with on-site predictions starting next week, we're going to be out on the road. We're not going to be here at the headquarters, as Emperor of Rome would say. We're not going to be able to get the SEC out in time. But the SEC coming out around July 24th, July 25th. But tonight, Pac-12 begins with Oregon. You're certainly not going to want to miss that. Oregon, a heavy favorite in the Pac-12 and potential dark horse playoff contender. Let's see who else we got here on the line. Uncle Luke, congratulations on hitting 400 subs. It's a pretty big accomplishment. Channel is growing. I've watched some of your content, so you've got some good stuff over there. Keep working, man. Keep working. I remember that. I remember those days, and makes me sound like I have over 10,000. I don't, but we are, I think, 36 away from 2,000. So very, very close. Hopefully we'll have that by next week. We're hoping we can. So, but congratulations on that. Absolutely. Let's see what else we got on the line here. Hunter, 56-57. Who do I think will win the Navy-Army game? Army-Navy game? Army. Plain and simple. No doubt in my mind right now. I mean, I'm not saying it's a guarantee that Army's going to beat them, but if I had to predict that game right now in July, so 5 months before that game is even played, I'm picking Army. Army is going to be legit in 2019. Their toughest game, guys, is the game at Michigan, and they could give Michigan a fight in that game at the Big House, and there's a very good chance that could be Army's only loss. So they could be 11-1. Now, their strength of schedule outside of that game is horrible. I had a conversation with a guy about that just the other day. Strength of schedule is terrible. So even if they go 11-1, they're not a college football playoff contender because of how weak their strength of schedule is and being an independent. But they could compete for a New Year's Six bowl game. Absolutely. Should start the season ranked in the top 25. And if they have a respectable showing against Michigan, much like they did last year against Oklahoma, taking the Sooners to overtime, only losing by 7, then you could be looking at a New Year's Six Army team, which is extremely dangerous. So right now, I'm giving them the edge over Navy, Hunter, because Navy, I think, is going to continue to struggle a little bit in 2019. Not as bad as they were last year, but a couple of years ago, Navy with Keenan Reynolds and guys like that, that was the team to beat. Army couldn't beat them. But once Army snapped that streak, it's been all Army all the time against the midshipmen. Will Burrow, did I see the recruit that Arkansas State got? ESPN said it's their highest recruit ever. I actually did not see that. I guess I missed that. I think someone asked earlier, do I keep up with recruiting? I do monitor it, but we're not like an all-in recruiting guy, an all-in recruiting channel. We do discuss recruiting on the live stream sometimes. We do discuss recruiting on when like National Signing Day. We definitely talk about that, but we don't keep up with it too much. We just try to do as much as we can. So I guess I missed that, but he's out of Memphis, so that's a huge boost to the Red Wolves, who need all the help they can get. What position did you say he was? Was he a wide receiver, is that what we said? You didn't mention, but he's Arkansas State needs some help offensively after losing their star quarterback in Justice Hansen. Could be a tough year for the Red Wolves in the Sun Belt. And I saw Clayton down there mentioning when do those Sun Belt conference predictions come out. I'm going to tell you what, Clayton, those will come out probably first week of August. We'll break down every single group of 5 conference, not team by team, but conference, have a projected record for each of those. So Sun Belt will certainly be out. I know you're anxious to see those, as is everybody on the ASU campus, I'm sure. So we'll definitely have that coming out soon, along with every other team. So Army will be in there. We're actually going to do game by game for Army, but Houston, UCF, the American Athletic, that's going to be a big one. So plenty to come with the group of 5. Comic Dude 45, glad to have you, man. He's on break, probably from marching band, I assume. I'm going to guess, but I'm glad you're able to join the stream, man. It's not the same without you. It's not the same when you're not here. Same with Emperor of Rome and Freeman Allen. I'm hoping they can join the chat here in a little bit, but I'm glad you're able to catch us, man. Really do appreciate it. Preston Love, what do I think about the Penn State quarterback situation? Well, right now, Preston, I think it's work. It's work. Okay, I got you. I think we've talked about that before. And Preston, they lose Tommy Stevens, who for some reason transferred to Mississippi State when he was projected to win the job for the Nittany Lions. Which was kind of shocking when I got that news, and shocking of all places to go to Mississippi State. But now, and I know he's going to reunite with Joe Moorhead, who was the previous offensive coordinator at Penn State, but still. But now they've got Sean Clifford, and it's his job to lose. Thing is, though, he's not going to be bad. I think a lot of people are freaking out with Penn State because they lose Trace McSorley, one of the better quarterbacks in recent memory for the Nittany Lions, but Clifford's going to be just fine. And this is a Penn State team that is not going to go from, 9, 10 wins to barely making a bowl. They're still going to be a competitor in the Big Ten. Of course, the schedule doesn't help them out. They're going up against Michigan State, who is going to be tough, Michigan, Ohio State, a couple trap games here and there, Maryland, a team that I actually do like in 2019. Maybe not making a bowl game, but a team that can pull off some upsets with Josh Jackson and Anthony McFarland, and now they got Mike Locksley coming in as head coach. So Maryland, not a team you want to sleep on. So I think the Penn State quarterback situation is fine, but if something were to happen, Preston, to Clifford, they're in trouble. Let's just put it at that. They don't have any, to me, they don't have a lot of depth at the quarterback position. So if he were to go out or get suspended or whatever happened to Sean Clifford, they're in big time trouble. And that's something that Penn State's got to be cautious of. They've got to be prepping those backups because you never know when your time's going to be called to come in to the game, especially in a big time moment. So Penn State's season obviously relies around the quarterback situation. I think the defense is going to be fine. But they did lose a lot of guys in the transfer portal. They haven't had the best of recruiting as of late. So Penn State not going to be, in my opinion, a national title contender like they've been the past few years in that playoff hunt, but still a very dangerous team in the Big Ten. Trey Drew, and guys, I promise I'm going to get to all these questions. I see everybody's coming through, so I will hit every single one, at least the ones that are worthy. We will definitely touch on those, so don't think I'm going to forget you. But Trey Drew, if you were a coach and had a successful run in a group of 5, maybe 3 years, would you leave for a bigger school or stay and try to be a legend at that smaller school? Trey, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. You've got to leave and take the opportunity at a bigger school. While you could stay put at that smaller school and become a legend and consistently get that smaller school to consistent bowl games, conference championships, and maybe crack through to the New Year's Six and win a couple of those, you would always, I think, in my opinion, wonder if I'm this good, if I can do this at a school. And I think the best example that's coming to mind right now is Tom Herman. So Tom Herman's at Houston, did phenomenal things with the Cougars. I mean, he got them to a New Year's Six bowl game, beat Florida State, beat Oklahoma that year after that New Year's Six bowl win, and I truly believe they could have been a playoff contender had they not lost to Navy and then SMU. But you can't help but wonder. Tom Herman then leaves to go to Texas. He took a bigger job when it was his dream job. So why he could have stayed at Houston and been a legend forever, now he's at Texas, which is a big-time job, and he's doing well with Texas. And I saw someone say, I'd do what Gary Patterson did. You could get lucky. If you want to stay at a smaller school, eventually that school could become so dominant, and maybe they'd go to another conference. TCU was in, the Mountain West, and now they're in the Big 12, so Gary Patterson was stuck in the Mountain West, and now he's in the Big 12. And even though TCU back in the Mountain West days, they got up as high as number 3, number 4 in the country, played in Rose Bowls, Fiesta Bowls, stuff like that, they probably weren't going to get the national championship. They were close. At least under the old BCS system, they probably weren't going to get there. Could have, but they weren't able to. In the Big 12, he's got a chance to get them to the playoff. And he stayed at TCU, rode through those Mountain West days, never left, and now he's in the Big 12 and he's got that chance. So you could get lucky and that can happen. But Trey, for me, I would leave and take, and I know that would hurt that school, hurt those fans, hurt those players, but you got to take the opportunities. If you're coaching the American Athletic, go coach in the Big 12. Go coach in the SEC. You're coaching on a national stage, and if you could build something that great at a smaller school, which is going to be tougher to recruit at than maybe another in-state school that's bigger than you, imagine what that coach could do at a bigger school. It doesn't always work out, but I would definitely take that opportunity. Michael Caputi, if I'm pronouncing that right. Will Hertz live up to the hype? Will Jalen Hertz live up to the hype at Oklahoma? Yes, he will. I'm not saying he's going to go win the Heisman, which would be the 3rd straight quarterback out of Oklahoma to win the Heisman, but there's something to be said for that. The fact that Lincoln Riley's staff has coached 2 back-to-back Heisman winners and Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, and now they bring in Jalen Hertz, and everybody. Here's the thing. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Everybody just kind of rides off Jalen Hertz. They're like, oh, he's not that good. He's not that good. He can't throw. Y'all are forgetting that Jalen Hertz got Alabama to a national championship game. They did lose, sure, but I think that was the year they played against Clemson, and then he got them back to face off against Georgia. Tua came in, led them to that victory, and then the rest is history. Tua took over the starting job. Jalen still came in and beat Georgia in the SEC title game before leaving to go to Oklahoma. So this guy can play. He's a baller. He can run. He does need to work on his mechanics, his passing game. And I think that the Lincoln Riley coaching staff will do just that. That's why I think he's going to thrive in this Oklahoma system. So he absolutely will live up to the hype. It's another transfer quarterback for Oklahoma. They did it with Baker. They did it with Kyler. Now they're doing it with Jalen. They're thriving off of these transfers. And I truly believe that Lincoln Riley and his staff are going to coach him up, work on his mechanics, and Jalen Hertz is going to be one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the entire country. So absolutely, I do believe he'll live up to the hype. And Oklahoma, once again, will be a college football playoff contender, But the biggest threat, of course, is Texas. They've got to get past Texas. And someone mentioned it earlier, they have a very tough game and a very tough threat against Houston in week 1. That is a major trap game. Lost to Houston a few years ago. Dana Holgorsen comes over with the Cougars now. De'Aaron King, that crew of wide receivers are really going to test that Oklahoma defense. So not an easy way to open up week 1, but without a doubt, they're still playoff contenders. Mark Mello, another follow-up question. We're talking about the American Athletic, since we're on the topic. Who does the American go after to replace UConn? They're trying to push themselves as Power 6, or do they continue with an uneven number? Well, they've got to replace them. They've got to replace UConn somehow. And there's a lot of debate. Who are they going to take to fill in that gap? Some people are calling for like Army to leave the Independent and go be in the American Athletic. Some people were saying Appalachian State from the Sun Belt, who has done phenomenal down there. So there's a lot of questions. They're going to promote, obviously, from a lower level. They're either going to take a team from the Independent or from like the MAC or the Conference USA, maybe even as far down as the Sun Belt, who many peg as the worst conference in all of college football, even though they have had some solid teams there. So I'm not really sure. Someone mentioned UAB leaving the Conference USA to go to the American Athletic. They've thrived the past, 2 years under Bill Clark, but football hasn't been back. UAB hasn't been back for that long. They've only had football for like the past 3 years, 2-3 years. So, and someone, I think I saw a good point there. You've got to look at it from a standpoint of if one team leaves to go join the American Athletic in football, will they be joining that conference in all other sports, basketball, baseball, everything else? Cyclone Mitch, that's a good point. James Madison, so scratch FBS, maybe promoting from the FCS. But for James Madison, though, that would be a pretty big jump for them. They've been one of the most dangerous FCS teams by far. I've given a lot of FBS teams some threats. But to jump from the FCS to the American Athletic, which many, as you mentioned, Mark, are considering it a Power 6, that's a pretty big jump. Going up against guys like UCF and Houston and Temple, who's usually fairly consistent, Navy. There's some tough teams in the American Athletic Conference. So that would be a pretty bold jump for James Madison. But I think we'd all like to see a team like James Madison or North Dakota State to come in from the FCS and join a conference in the FBS because of how well they've done in that lower division. So I don't know who they're going to take. I think someone said Liberty earlier. I wouldn't say Liberty yet. They've only been in the FBS for a couple of years now. I think this is their second year, and they went 6-6 last year. Could do better this year, but I wouldn't go that far yet. So it's going to be very interesting. But they can't, in my opinion, continue with an uneven number for long. It's just not going to happen. So we're going to have to wait and find out how that all works out. But it's going to be fun to watch. Whoever it is, they need to make sure they get them into the American Athletic and they're a legitimate contender. You're not trying to find a guy that's going to replace UConn and that's going to struggle consistently like UConn. You're looking for a guy that can immediately compete. Who's that going to be? Brandon Franklin couldn't agree more. College sports greater than pro sports. I agree with that. I prefer college football over the NFL. I prefer college basketball over the NBA, especially the NCAA tournament by far. College baseball versus MLB, I don't know. I actually might lean a little bit more towards the MLB. I keep up with that a little bit more in the regular season, but College World Series are absolutely a blast. So, but college basketball and football by far. DM, which regular season game would I want to see in person? And I know there are many. Man, if you're talking about this year, DM, that's tough. I would always love to go. I really want to travel to Notre Dame. I'd love to watch a game at Notre Dame just because of that atmosphere there. I would love to go down to Clemson. I know if Prince was here, he and I had talked, and maybe go down and get up with him and a couple other big Clemson buddies and watch a game, the Tiger game. I'd love to watch them play a guy like Florida State or Miami whenever they're facing a big opportunity there. Georgia, Notre Dame this season. Man, that would be a blast down in Athens. The Big House. I'd love to go up to the Big House. Actually, I take that back. I take all of that back. This year, specifically, Penn State, Michigan. That would be one I'd love to go to, DM, out in the Big Ten. To get to watch Penn State host Michigan, a team that could be a college football playoff contender this year. That's going to be a night game for the Nittany Lions. It's probably going to be their whiteout game. So to be in Happy Valley at the whiteout game, that would be a pretty amazing environment. So not only do I, when I'm choosing a game that I want to go to, not only am I looking at the game itself, that's going to be a good game, a good matchup. You're looking at the atmosphere too. What's the tailgating like? What's the atmosphere inside the stadium like? Is it a day game? Is it a night game? Sometimes you don't know that ahead of time, but a lot of those factors add up to the entire college football experience, the entire game day experience. So though that would probably be my top right now. Penn State, Michigan, would love to go to that. Notre Dame, Georgia, would love to go to that one. Unfortunately, money and travel prevent a lot of that, but there are a lot that I'd love to go to. Maybe we'll get there someday. Eli here, going bold. I like Stanford to win the Pac-12. Their schedule is favorable, and they get the key games at home. So yes, and as you know, we kick off our Pac-12 predictions tonight with Oregon. Stanford will be coming out tomorrow, so you'll hear our take on that. But Stanford does get to host Washington and Oregon. So they get to host their top two competitors in the North, and if they can win at least one of those, if they win both, they are the front runners in the North by far. But one of them will keep them in contention. The problem is they don't return a whole lot of starters. Now, KJ Costello, they do bring back, and that's going to be the key for the Cardinal. Passing game is going to be potent. It's going to be tough to stop for any team. They lose Bryce Love, but he wasn't that big of a factor in 2018. So I'm not too worried about them replacing him in 2019. But, yeah, Stanford's still going to be legit. David Shaw's teams rarely disappoint. I think they've won 8 games. The past decade have won at least 8 games over the past 10 years. So haven't had a season below 8 games. So, I mean, it's going to happen again in 2019. It's just, can they win just 8 or can they win 10 or 11 and compete in the North and on the national stage? Preston Love, is it just me or is Nebraska overhyped? They are receiving a lot of hype for a 4-8 team, Preston. I'll say that. For a team that went 4-8 in 2018, they're bringing back a lot. Getting a lot of hype in 2019. People are saying win the Big Ten, college football playoff dark horse. But if you read into it, Preston, if you go and you really study Nebraska and you look at their roster and you look at their schedule and you look at the way Nebraska played last season, they started off the season 0-6, but won 4 of their last 6 games and were much more competitive down the stretch. I think they lost those last 6 games, or out of the last 6 games, they won 4, and their 2 losses, if I'm not mistaken, was like a 3-point loss to Iowa and a 5-point loss to Ohio State, maybe. And that game was at Ohio State. So this Nebraska team shows a lot of signs of improvement. I released our top 25, our preseason top 25, and everybody was like, you need to put Nebraska in there. I don't think a 4-8 team deserves to start the season in the top 25. I don't care how many starters you bring back, and I don't care how big of a year you're expecting to have. You should remain outside the top 25. But they could be in there after week 1 or week 2. But I'm buying into the hype now. I love Adrian Martinez at quarterback. That he brings back some solid wide receivers. The defense is going to be much better under Scott Frost. It's year 2 for him. He kind of hit his stride in year 2 with Central Florida, and I really expect some big things out of Nebraska this year. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go win the Big Ten. I'm not saying they're going to be a dark horse playoff contender, but I do expect big things out of them. So it's a lot of hype. It's going to be tough for them to live up to it, but they certainly have the talent to do it. Hunter 56-57, do I think that Notre Dame will be as good as last year? And Eli, once again, kind of taking the words out of my mouth. He and I just kind of think a lot alike. Emperor of Rome, I see you coming in right now. Hey, good to have you, man. We were just talking about you a few minutes ago, so we're glad to have you, man. But Hunter, I tell you what, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. Eli saying Notre Dame regresses a little bit, thinks they win 9 or 10 games, and I think that's fairly accurate. Notre Dame is not going to go undefeated in 2019. It's not going to happen. They lost a lot of talent. They do bring back Ian Book. He does return plenty of his wide receivers, so I don't expect them to drop from that undefeated team to 8 or 7 wins. I think they're still going to remain a title contender. But when you look at that schedule, at Michigan, at Georgia, at Stanford, so 3 really, really tough road games on top of the guys they're going to be hosting and a couple other road games sprinkled in there, it's a brutal schedule for Notre Dame. And I'm not saying all of those are going to be losses, but that Michigan and Georgia games are going to be very telling. I think they play Georgia first, and then they play Michigan a little ways down the road. If they upset Georgia, if they upset Michigan, if they upset one of those 2 teams, you could be looking at Notre Dame being as good as they were last year. Because everybody criticized Notre Dame last year. Had they lost 1 game, I don't think they would have been in the playoff. But they went undefeated, and they had quality wins. This year, if they win 2 of those 3 games I mentioned, so they're 11-1 team, they could get into the college football playoff because they would have quality wins over Stanford and Michigan, or Michigan and Georgia, or Stanford. They'd have 2 or 3 wins over those top 3 games, and it's very possible that an 11-1 Notre Dame team could get into the playoff. But I don't think they win 2 of those 3 games. I think it's too tough of a schedule. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But they're not going to be as good as they were last year. Not going undefeated this year. 11-1 could consider them in the mix for the playoff, but it's going to be a stretch. And Will, I see your comment there. So he was a linebacker, the guy that committed to ASU, Arkansas State, said he had 12 offers from SEC schools. So if that is truly the case, I would love to know his reasoning for coming to Arkansas State, for dissing 12 SEC schools and coming to a Sun Belt school. I would love to know his reasoning, and to each their own, man. I mean, a lot of players, while it would be phenomenal to play in the SEC, some guys, as one guy mentioned earlier, wants to be the hero at a smaller school, and it's the environment. Some people, believe it or not, when they get recruited to another school, it's not all about the football program. They also take some stock into their academics and their environment there. So a lot of people don't realize that, but plenty of players do care about the environment they're going to be put in. It's not just the pedigree of saying, I play for Alabama, or I play for Clemson, or some national power. It's, I'm playing football for them, but I'm also getting my major in this. So it's the academics, it's the environment, it's the campus. A lot of stock goes into it. So maybe that could have played a role in his decision, if that is true, on why he dissed 12 SEC schools and came to the Sun Belt. Alan Wayne, do I watch any other channel predictions? I mean, of course. Look, we guys, what you got to understand is across the board, the guys that run all these channels, so me, and I know a lot of you guys watch my man Mark Rogers. He's a good friend of mine. You got SG1 Sports. You've got a bunch of other channels out there that do predictions. So of course we all talk, and we all Uncle Lou, we all talk and see each other's videos and kind of comment and mention stuff like that. So yeah, of course I watch other people's videos and predictions, but of course that does not influence mine. That's the kicker. It's a matter of, I can watch them. Maybe we agree, maybe we're spot on, maybe we disagree drastically. But other people's predictions don't influence my predictions that we do here. That's what people have to understand. So that's the key overall. Hunter, do I think Kelly Bryant? I don't know what that comment was, but how do I think he will do, or how do I think he will start? He's going to start. How do I think he will do? Missouri's a team that's not getting talked about enough in 2019. If you ask me, no one's really talking about the Tigers, and of course they're on that bowl ban right now, tentatively. They're trying to get it removed, and personally, I want them to get that removed. Missouri's got a lot of talent this year that they could potentially win 9 or 10 wins. They could get 9 or 10 wins in 2019. It's very, very possible. So I hope they remove that bowl ban on the Tigers. But Kelly Bryant is huge. When you lose a quarterback like Drew Lock, one of the best passers I've seen come through Missouri in a long time, and then you bring in Kelly Bryant, a guy that got Clemson to the college football playoff a few years ago, who, in my opinion, kind of like Jalen Hertz, needs to work on his mechanics for throwing. He's very dangerous on the ground, but needs to work a little bit more through the air. But I think under Barry Odom, he can do that. Missouri's going to be legit, and Kelly Bryant's going to have a great year in 2019. So he'll definitely start, no doubt. Brandon, do I think they'll expand the playoff from 4 to 8 teams here soon? No. I can't remember if it was you that commented that or if it was somebody else, but someone commented on one of our first videos, I think it was Clemson, asking when do they think the playoff will expand. I can't remember. I think the deal for the 40-team playoff is until 2025, if I'm not mistaken. So the earliest we could see expansion to 8 is 2026, and I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. To me, 4 teams isn't a playoff. To me, 4 teams, it's like the Final Four. And I think it's great. It gets away that controversy that we had in the BCS era, where it was just, top 2 teams, 1 and 2, they're in the national championship. Everybody else is playing in a BCS/New Year's Six bowl game. So this way, you take the top 4 teams. And granted, no matter how far you expand the playoffs, there's always going to be a couple teams that get left out. Right now, it's teams 5 and 6. You expand to 8, it's teams 9 and 10. But you got to draw the line somewhere. But I think 8 is the perfect playoff. The NFL has 6 teams. The NBA has 8 teams. And I know some coaches have voiced their opinions about how high school football can handle it, where they can have 8 teams or 6 teams, something there. It's not that hard. It's not. You worry about scheduling. You worry about the week. You cut the season a little short. Take away maybe a non-conference game or 2, and then you expand the postseason a little bit. I mean, it's not that hard to have an 8-team playoff. They're making it harder than it needs to be. And maybe that first round game. So when you got all 8 teams there, you play the game at the highest seed's home game at their home stadium. And then when you get to the Final Four, then you play at a site like the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl. But, Brandon, in the end, I don't think they'll expand to 8 teams soon. As much as I want that to happen, I don't think it's going to happen. It still remains to be seen. Yeah, I mean, there's time remaining, but they have a contract drawn, I think, through 2025. So at least for the next 6 years, you're stuck with a 14 playoff. Hey, we got Tef on the line. Hope he's still with us. Tef, one of my favorite customers, buying our expert picks. And I'll throw that little shameless plug in there right now. If you go visit our website, thegridironexpert.com, please sign up for our newsletter. More than anything, sign up for the newsletter, guys. And make sure you're doing that. At the bottom of the page, there is a subscribe form. Insert your email address. I get the alert, and you'll get our newsletter for the entire season. But Tef went online, did that, and also bought our expert picks, and we are doing that plug during our videos, but I'll do it here. $30, every single one of our spread picks for the 2019 season. So I can promise you that is a deal that you don't want to pass up. I mean, compared to some of the other options out there, $30 is extremely cheap and affordable for all the spread picks you'll be getting. And that includes the postseason as well. So Tef went ahead and did that. And we've had a lot of people sign up. So if you guys haven't done that, have at it. Please do. Expert picks only at thegridironexpert.com. You're not going to regret it. I can promise you that. And at the least, if you don't want to do that, go sign up for our newsletter because you're going to be getting plenty of content analysis through that as well. But Tef, to answer your question, will Nebraska get to a bowl game this year? Absolutely. Absolutely they will. No doubt in my mind. What else we got on the line here? Comic Dude, would it be smart for a coach to lead a team like Kansas to a New Year's Six bowl game, then take a job at a team like Alabama? Now, that's another interesting scenario there. So, when coaches are hired, though, you have to keep in mind the team that is hiring. So, say Alabama was looking to their replacement for Nick Saban. Say they went to, let's say, Les Miles. We're just using the Kansas example. Les Miles takes Kansas to a New Year's Six bowl game. We know the pedigree. We know the resume that Les Miles has from his time at LSU. Say it's not him, though. You look at a team like Alabama, though. Their athletic department is doing everything they can to find themselves a new coach. So they're not basing it off of just one season. They're looking at everything. They're looking at their entire resume. These guys come in for interviews, which is hard to believe. It makes it interesting to me when guys they say we have a coaching candidate and he's coming in for an interview like it's an actual job, which it is their job. But, I would just say, look at the numbers. You saw what I did at my previous school. You saw what I'm doing here right now. This is what I can do. And I know they dive into a bunch of other stuff, but it would be a gutsy call. That coach that took Kansas to a New Year's Six bowl game, was that his first year? Was that his second year? What had he been doing at Kansas prior to that? Because you could say it's a fluke. Look at Colorado, for example. What if a team had hired Mike McIntyre at a big-time Power 5 school? I mean, he's already at Colorado, but let's say he's taking a step up. Big Ten, SEC. After that year, they won 10 games and went to the Pac-12 championship game. Before that, he hadn't gotten them to a bowl game. The next 2 years, he went 5-7, including last year. They started off 5-0 and lost their last 7 games. I'm not saying that was a fluke by any means. That was a very experienced Colorado team, but one season doesn't designate success, and you do have to take those things into consideration. I am the Lizard King. He's been commenting quite a bit on our videos. Good to have you, man. And if you didn't catch it earlier, or if you're still on the line, I should say, Oregon. Our predictions for Oregon will be dropping tonight. Tonight, our Oregon prediction will be coming out, Pac-12 for the next week or so, and then jumping into our on-site predictions later in the next week. Uncle Luke, would I want to watch a North Carolina football game in person? Well, sure. I mean, look, I would take the opportunity to go to any college football game, any Division I, FBS college football game, and I'll go to an FCS school. I'd love to go watch North Dakota State or James Madison or something like that. Harvard, Yale, that'd be a blast. But I would take the opportunity to go watch any college football game in person. So sure, UNC, absolutely. Now, especially with Mac Brown, I'd love to watch these guys in person. So for sure, no doubt in my mind. See what else we got on the line here. I'm trying to catch up on all of our comments. Emperor of Rome, I see your comment now about UConn. We talked a lot about that earlier in the chat. I know we've got some stuff. You guys are discussing it in the comments here. But my thoughts on that, to become an independent, as I mentioned earlier in the chat or in the stream, is the best option for UConn. That's what they need to do. UConn does not need to join another conference right now. They're leaving the AAC where they couldn't succeed. Independent's the way to go if they want to win 5 or 6 games consistently because they can schedule who they want. And they're not going to schedule the big boys. Well, like I said, they might schedule a few, but they're going to schedule some where they can get some wins or at least compete. Make football just fun. You know, it sucks to lose, but at least if you lose, you'd hope to lose. You hope to lose competitively, not get blown out. So definitely going to be good for UConn, no doubt in my mind. But Big East for everything else, and their basketball program is usually pretty dominant. It's usually pretty successful, so they'll do fine in the Big East, I think. Craig Pina, I see it's coming in right now. I appreciate it, man. Liking the predictions. I hope you guys are all liking the predictions. We just finished up the ACC. We got our new look, got our new logo, got our new intro, and everything else. So I hope you guys are liking it. But Craig, glad to have you on the chat, man. Always good when you're on there with us. Yanni Zulakis, TCU Frogcast. Man, that's a heck of a name right there. How do I think TCU will do? This is the typical bounce-back year for Gary Patterson. Man, I tell you what, this is a year that I think TCU, last year, disappointing year. Even though they won their bowl game over Cal, it was kind of a disappointing season for them. But this is like that year that everybody has to keep an eye on TCU because this is a prime opportunity for Gary Patterson and the Horned Frogs to jump from that 7-win season last year to 9 or 10 wins in 2019. I'm not saying that's going to be the case for them. They still need to figure out who's going to be their quarterback. But after that, I would expect TCU's team to be much improved, especially offensively, because they were pretty abysmal offensively last year. And you saw that in the bowl game against Cal. But much improved across the board. Not going to say they're college football playoff contenders, but they're going to go back to a bowl game. They're going to be dominant in the Big 12 once again. No one wants to play them because anytime you face off against TCU, you've got to be prepared for a dogfight. Doesn't matter what their record is, they're going to be tough to beat. Border Bob, what's going on? Hope you're still on the line with us, but glad you were able to join today, as always. Uncle Luke going to be uploading his Michigan State video today, so y'all can go check that out if you want. Our Big Ten predictions will be coming out in about a week or so. I think kicking off about next week, so you're not going to want to miss those. And comment due to continuing on your topic that you mentioned earlier, but going from one Power 5 to another, even if one is better than the other, and in conference, So yeah, you imagine that's one. I mean, I have an issue with that on when I played the video game, NCAA 14. If you got a dynasty, say you're which is the last NCAA we have, unfortunately, but you look at you're doing a dynasty mode and you're coaching in the SEC. It would feel wrong or weird just to go from one school in the SEC to another. Now, I do believe that there was a step up in the Power 5, so you can be in a Power 5 conference. But I do believe that going from Kansas, as you mentioned, to Alabama, I think that's a step up. There's something to be said for the area you're in, the history that you have, the recruiting benefits in the recruiting area, level of competition. There's a lot to be said. So, we've ranked the conferences before. I still think SEC is number one when it comes to conferences. But, you look at the coaching and then you look at the teams, they're Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia. Paul Feinbaum just came out and said that he doesn't think Florida State's a destination job, but in terms of their history and success that they've had in years past, that there is an opportunity there to do something good. Billy Taggart's not doing that right now. He could get them there. I expect them to improve in 2019, but got to give them some time. But nonetheless, it is weird. It feels wrong and weird to go from one Power 5 school to another if it's in the same conference. And like you said, looking at you, Nick Saban, doesn't feel too wrong to go from one Power 5 school to another if they're in a separate conference, especially if it's a step up. Colorado to, Kansas, or Colorado to Arkansas, or Colorado to Alabama, or, Pac-12 school to an SEC school, Pac-12 to Big Ten. Depending on the level of competition and the conference, that, to me, would be okay. Border Bob, Northwestern is going to be surprising this year. They had their moments last year. New quarterback from your Tigers, absolutely. Getting Hunter Johnson, the transfer from Clemson. Last year they surprised a lot of people by winning the West. I don't think a lot of people were banking on Northwestern winning that division. I think Wisconsin was the heavy favorite. Of course, they were a major disappointment. Getting Hunter Johnson in at quarterback from Clemson is going to give Pat Fitzgerald Northwestern a huge boost. But that Big Ten West division, wide open for the taking. Reminds me a lot of the ACC Coastal. Anybody can win the Big Ten West. There's no favor. I think a lot of people want Nebraska to win that division, think Nebraska could win that division. But Wisconsin, Purdue, Northwestern, Nebraska, Iowa, it's wide open for the taking. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But Northwestern last year won the division, won 8 or 9 games, and Pat Fitzgerald has done that consistently with Northwestern. And I would expect another decent year out of them for sure. Hey, Craig Pina got his, where was that comment? Did you get your Penn State season tickets? Is that what I just saw? Yeah, Penn State season tickets for freshman year. That's nice, man. And I don't know if you were in the chat, man. I said I would love to come over and watch Penn State and Michigan this year. So you're getting your season tickets. In year one, you're going to get to go to probably the whiteout game at night in Happy Valley to face off against Michigan, who could very well be a college football playoff contender. Penn State games, period, are going to be a lot of fun. So I'm happy for you, man. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be awesome. So cheer loud and I hope for the best for the Penn State. Honestly, I have a lot of respect for James Franklin and that program there. So even though their quarterback issue is a little shaky, even though the recruiting trail hasn't been going as well, I'm looking forward to watching Penn State this season. So you being at every game, that's going to be a lot of fun. Trey Drew, that's a great question. A guy, if you've watched our videos before, I say you never underestimate Gary Patterson and you never underestimate Mark D'Antonio. But which one would I choose out of the two? Which one would I choose out of the two? And what if they had to go up against each other? Man, oh man. Right now, if I had to choose out of those two coaches, I'm going to probably lean towards Mark D'Antonio. For me personally, if I had to choose my coach out of those two, I like Mark D'Antonio. Gary Patterson has done phenomenal. And both of them, to me, are very, very similar. You look at the success stories for both of them. Patterson rarely has a losing season, but when he does, he always bounces back. Same thing can be said for Mark D'Antonio, though. He's usually very consistent with Michigan State, like Patterson is at TCU. They have one down year. Every program is going to have a down year. They always bounce back. But right now, I like Mark D'Antonio. He's been prone, to me, for pulling off more upsets and winning the big-time games. Not saying Gary Patterson hasn't or can't, but right now, I would take Mark D'Antonio. But both phenomenal coaches, and I'd love the opportunity. I think they have played it before in the past, but any opportunity to see TCU and Michigan State go up against each other with those two as head coaches, it would be a phenomenal game. And I'd love to see them in like a New Year's Six caliber bowl this year. I don't think that's going to happen and be the case, but it'd be phenomenal to see them facing off against each other on a very, very big stage. Brandon Franklin, you are a Louisville fan, but you hate Kentucky. Don't know how they're going to be this year. Will they go back to being mediocre? Depending on what their definition of mediocre is, they're not going to win 10 games again. I can tell you that. They're not going to win 10 games, but they're not going to go to being 5-7, 4-8. They're going to be a bowl team. A lot of people don't think that's going to be the case. It's a tough schedule because anytime you're in the SEC, it's going to be tough. But Kentucky will not go back to being mediocre. 6-6, 7-5, and maybe 8-4. And for Kentucky, that's good. Last year was exceptionally good. It was phenomenal. But this year, for Kentucky, they're not going to win 10 games. They're not going to be like they were last year. Lose too much defensively. Lose Benny Snell on offense. Might rely more on Terry Wilson at quarterback, who needs to step it up a little bit. But I think, Brandon, unfortunately for you, they're probably going to beat Louisville. I don't have a lot of faith in Louisville in year one under Scott Satterfield. I think it's going to be tough for him. The offense he inherits is not that great. I don't have a lot of faith in Jawan Pass. The defense is phenomenal. 10 returning starters. But I think he'll get him there maybe next year, just not in year one. I think Kentucky beats Louisville again. And you saw that in our Louisville predictions. Kyle May, my man, good to hear from you. I hope you're still on the line with us. I hope you didn't leave. It's been a while for me to get to this question, but glad to have you, man. As always, we need to get together here soon. But Is Arkansas. Of course, Arkansas. Going to have a winning record this year. Well, if I divulge that information, it'll kind of divulge my prediction, not officially, but I do not think the Razorbacks will have a winning record in 2019. I do not think that will be the case. Schedule's too difficult for Arkansas. They're playing in the SEC West. They have 4 winnable games against non-conference opponents. I think they've got Portland State, Western Kentucky, San Jose State, and Colorado State. So the non-conference is god-awful. It's pitiful. Assuming they can win those 4 games. They couldn't do it last year. They beat Eastern Illinois and Tulsa for their lone 2 wins, but fell to Colorado State and got annihilated by North Texas. So none of those wins are surefire victories for Arkansas. But I think they improve. I really do think they improve in 2019. They should win those 4 games, which means they need just 2 more to get to a bowl game. Maybe those 2 wins come against Ole Miss and a Kentucky team, or maybe Ole Miss and Missouri. But looking at the schedule, they're not going to beat Bama, LSU, probably Texas A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State. They draw Kentucky and Missouri out of the East, which is not horrible. It could have been a lot worse with like a Georgia and a Florida or something. But I don't see Arkansas getting to a winning record. And if it was a winning record, Kyle, if they got to a winning record, it would be 7-6, 6-6 with a bowl win. If Arkansas somehow pulled off 7-5 in the regular season, it would be one of the most impressive coaching jobs I've seen in a very long time. Because Arkansas team will improve, they're not going to improve that much. And with this type of schedule, it's going to be very difficult for them. But stay tuned officially for our official prediction that'll come out in a couple of weeks, probably July 24th, July 25th. We'll have Arkansas's prediction out there, and you'll know for sure, especially game by game, who we have them beating. But it's going to be another tough year, I think, for them. But once again, good to hear from you, Kyle. Yeah, DM, hey, you're the shameless plug. Hey, Craig, if you're still on the line, hook me up. Send Michigan Penn State tickets to me. I want to be there. If you get me the ticket, I'll fly out there. And I'll do a little something, maybe something live, a Gridiron expert live from Happy Valley for Michigan and Penn State. You hook me up with a ticket, shoot me an email, and I'll fly out there for you. But yeah, that would be pretty sick. DM, appreciate that, my man. Comic Dude, Rutgers should become a destination job. For now, it's only for alums. You need to branch out a little bit. Not a destination job by any means in terms of the pedigree, the success over the past few years. But, for me personally as a coach, I would love to, if I could come in as a coach, I would love to go to a school like a Rutgers or a Kansas, a school that has struggled for a long, long time. And have that pride and joy of coming in and turning them around. Maybe you can't do it, but I think for me as a coach, you don't want your first coaching job to be at a school that is just fresh off a 3-9 season, but the year before they were a 10-win team. Go to a team that struggled for a long time, and try to get them back to relevancy. And that would be a job like Rutgers, a job like Kansas, a job like for a while there it was Colorado in the Pac-12 or Illinois, who could be doing better in 2019, but still. Guys that had good days a long time ago, but have struggled recently. So, for me, I would not be opposed to taking a Rutgers job. So, hey, maybe Brandon, maybe you put a plug in to the athletic department and try to see if I can come up there and take over the head coaching job for you. Trey Drew, good point. Northwestern and Stanford are 2 decent wins Notre Dame does not get credit for or much credit for. Stanford, yes. I think Stanford's a win that they do get credit for just because last year Stanford wasn't like on the national stage, like a college football playoff contender. People kind of disregarded it. Northwestern won the Big Ten West, so last year they were solid wins for Notre Dame, no doubt. It's a very good point. Tef, can Utah State have another great season? Well, man, I tell you what, they get Jordan Love back at quarterback, and I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the group of 5. But they only have one other starter returning on offense outside of Jordan Love. That hurts them. Gary Anderson does return, though, and that's a huge boost for them. I know it's been a while since he coached there last, but they lose Matt Wells. But Utah State, Tef, I tell you what, they have the opportunity to get back to a bowl game. I'll say that. I don't think they're going to win what they win last year, 11 games, 10 or 11 games. I don't think that's going to happen. But they have the talent there to win at least 6, get back to a bowl game, maybe 7 or 8. And to me, that'd be another good year for the Aggies, especially when you lose so much on offense, when you're bringing in a new head coach, because Anderson's technically new, but he's been there before. So I'm not going to say they're going to win 10 or 11, kind of like Kentucky. I don't think they can do that again, but they're going to be a bowl team, and that's something that Utah State should still be happy about. And comment, dude, another good point there. Who needs season tickets when you can go in for free? Bingo. You don't even have to pay. You got to work a little bit, but if it's something you enjoy doing, heck yeah. And you got good seats, too. Got to add that. I mean, from what I've seen, when I've been to games, those guys, usually guys in the band, they don't have horrible seats. Emperor of Rome, yeah, and I like looking at the history of some of the conferences. This is a beautiful point. Emperor of Rome's kind of history fact of the day, his trivia fact of the day. The SEC used to include Georgia Tech, Tulane, and Sewanee. I actually have a couple of friends that are down at Sewanee. It's a great school. But can you imagine if they were still a part of the SEC? Absolutely not. I mean, can you imagine having Tulane? The only team that could be competitive out of those two would be Georgia Tech. And people have said, if the SEC ever expands, maybe Georgia Tech could be an option to slip into the East, always going up against Georgia every year, or maybe putting them in the West. East would make more sense, but they're the only team currently that could maybe compete or could have competed since like 1992 when the SEC really started to take off. But Tulane and Sewanee, absolutely not. That'd be wild. That'd be wild. But, teams like Arkansas and South Carolina, they didn't join the SEC until much, much later. I think that was 92, if I'm not mistaken. So, conference realignment stuff happened fairly recently. That's, 30 years ago? 27 years ago? So, yeah, but Tulane and Sewanee in the SEC, that would be a sight to see. Cyclone Mitch, my man, Les Miles announced, this is big news, that Puka Williams, the running back for Kansas, getting a lot of hype in 2019, will rejoin the football team and will serve a one-game suspension. So that's actually a very huge boost for Kansas, and actually helps me out a little, or makes me a little more excited for that game against Boston College when you get to watch Puka Williams go up against A.J. Dillon. Everybody's been, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Instagram or anything like that, you see all the free Puka stuff, and he's a good running back. He really is a talented guy. But there was that shadow of doubt of whether or not he was even going to get to play in 2019. So Les Miles, who, in my opinion, even at LSU, was not big on suspensions, was not very good with the way he disciplined his team at LSU, just giving Puka a one-game suspension, and he would make an immediate impact in year one of the Les Miles era. So big for him. And big news coming out of Lawrence. Brandon Franklin, this year might be rough for Louisville, but we are in good hands. The entire coaching staff was revamped. Our roster isn't as bad as what it looked like last season with that dumpster fire of coaching. Well, that's just to put it bluntly, Brandon. Man, you think Louisville will be ranked again in 2 to 3 years? I have a lot of faith in Scott Satterfield. If you watched our Louisville video, I said that. I said this isn't the year with the guys. He brings back plenty of starters, but it's going to take some time to kind of rejuvenate that offense, especially I don't have faith in Jawan Pass. But Satterfield is a offensive-minded coach. And I think he is the right man for the job. So in 2 or 3 years, yeah, he can absolutely get them back into the rankings and make them competitive in the ACC. But last year, they were just so uncompetitive. And that's what I was trying to say in our prediction. They will be more competitive this season. Statistically, they will be competitive. Maybe they pull a few upsets. But you're not going to see – there are a lot of teams this year, actually, in 2019, where I think they're going to be much more competitive, much more improved, but they're not going to see that improvement in the win column, which is really where it all only matters, is in the wins. And Chuba Purdy, so the brother, I believe, right, of Brock Purdy, the Iowa State quarterback, going to be balling out at Louisville, says Mitch, here pretty soon. And he's going to be our starter, absolutely, next year after Pass. And yeah, look, if it's in the genes, man. Brock Purdy is one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, so yeah, you've got a very good chance of having a good quarterback, much better than Jawan Pass, much better than what you got now. Ryan Mell, good to have you, man. Yeah, it is almost over, but hey, as I was telling people earlier, better late than never. Always glad when you're able to stop by, man. So glad you're able to join us, at least just for a little bit. Hope you've been enjoying the predictions. Those are always a lot of fun. So I'm glad you're able to stop by, though, for one of our last live streams for a while. I wanted to add that. And Emperor of Rome, good point. Sewanee is a Division III school now, and that's the thing. Way, way back when, some of these schools looked a lot different than they did now, in terms of enrollment, in terms of the way their athletic programs are. Some people, believe it or not, cut some of their athletic programs So yeah, it all looks different. It all looks different. So it's just kind of hard to believe what some of these conferences used to look like. I mean, wasn't it the old Southwest Conference? I mean, used to have Southwest, when it kind of disintegrated, it became the Big 12. But there were teams like I think Houston was in there. I think Rice was in there. SMU, and it's hard to believe those schools besides Houston. DM, sorry you got to leave, man. We're about to end anyways, but appreciate it, man. Always glad when you're able to join us. Stay in touch. Keep watching those predictions. Once again, glad you were able to stop by. But guys, like I mentioned, Houston's the only team out of those schools, like Rice and SMU, that I could see being competitive right now in a Power 5 conference, like in the Big 12. Rice and SMU couldn't do that, at least not right now. And SMU, especially off their death penalty, they were never the same. They were decent in the Southwest Conference, but after they got their penalty, it was over for them. And they're still, in my opinion, rebuilding. It just when you shut down your football program, UAB's done a good job with it. But when you shut down your program like that, and your program gets shut down like that, it's tough to rebuild and become dominant like you once were. But yeah, it's just amazing to think about the way the conferences used to be aligned. SEC, a lot different. Now you've got a team that used to be in the SEC, they're a Division III school now. Team that used to be there is ACC. Tulane is in the, what was that, Conference USA or American Athletic, one of the two. So yeah, it's pretty wild just to think about the differences that have transpired in really relatively short period of time. It's really a thing of beauty. And that's what's so fun about college football is it's constantly changing. The game is changing. The rules are changing. The conferences are changing. And we got a new team coming into the American Athletic at some point soon. Whether that's from the FBS, whether that's from the FCS, it's constantly changing and just continues to add excitement to this game that we have come to love and enjoy. And that's really just a thing of beauty. And that's one of the reasons I love it so much. Prince coming in at the final second, man. We're about to wrap up. We're so close, but glad to have you. At least, like I said to Ryan, better late than never. Always good when you're able to stop by, man. We were just actually talking earlier about Clemson coming down for a game at some point, so I'm gonna try to make my way down there at some point here soon. Maybe come watch a game with you. But just got off work, so yeah, I know. Usually we try to do this stuff right at around between 6 and 9. But today we had to make an exception because of prediction season and because we're going to be traveling. We're about to hit the road again for some on-site predictions. So make sure you don't miss out on that. And Prince, I appreciate that. You don't have to rewatch the whole thing. I know it's over an hour, but you got to ride home. You're going to hit the gym, whatever you're going to do. This is a perfect way to spend that time. So appreciate that. Brandon, love the stream. Always look forward to the videos. I know you've been watching for a few years, as always, and a lot of you guys that have stuck around through this live stream have been watching pretty much since the beginning. I actually, an old friend of mine just sent me a couple of videos from way back when, and I gotta say, the old videos that we did at the beginning were, I'll say, extremely cringy to watch. Looking at it now, we've come a long way, and a lot of it is due to you guys, due in part to you guys, the fans. It's been the evolution, in my opinion, of the Gridiron Expert, and it's been a good one at that. So continuing to grow, continuing to do these live streams and predictions, and continuing to do it, the thing that I love, and the thing that you guys have come to love as well. So means a lot. We're going to take this opportunity, guys, to go ahead and wrap things up. I'm sorry, Prince, that we're wrapping up, but to all of you guys that joined us today at 2 o'clock, thank you so much. Thank you for joining the live stream. Emperor of Rome, I'll catch you later, man. Always good to see you, and keep enjoying those predictions, guys. Tonight, we kick off the Pac-12. Oregon is coming out around 6 or 7 o'clock Central Time tonight. Don't miss it. Stay tuned for it. We got the Pac-12 coming this week. On-site predictions coming next week, as early as next week. They're going to be sprinkled throughout there, but you're not going to want to miss any of those. Go check out our website, guys, thegridironexpert.com. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter yet, take the time to do that. And take the time to sign up for our expert picks as well, because I promise you're not going to want to miss it. But predictions coming your way. Last live stream for a while, but this is not the last time we will be talking. Keep commenting. Keep bringing those predictions in the comments, and I'll keep responding like I always do. So, guys, thank you so much for the support and watching the live stream. You guys take it easy. Mike, take it easy, man. Appreciate you. And we'll see you next time here on the Gridiron Expert.